The one board, Danny Harf, an icon in wakeboarding. We have him here. Really stoked for this one, Dad. Glad you're here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Dan, we go back. I legitimately remember one of the first times I met you was
Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado for the Nationals.
Nationals.
Yeah.
Sloan's Lake.
Sloan's Lake. Man, you
You were
remember.
riding a full tilt at
Yep.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember too. I was hanging out with Shane Bonifay, and you guys were pretty tight, and we got to be buddies and never looked back.
Never looked back. And then since then, the start of Pointless, the evolution of just wakeboarding has been an amazing journey.
What do you think, 98, 99?
No, that I'm pretty sure that was 97 Nationals,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, it could've-
97, 98 Nationals, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But man, looking back on wakeboarding, what I mean, from what you as a Grom, what was it, My House?
My house, that was like my first real video.
Fall Line Films. If you
Yeah.
don't know, check it out.
Artie from FLF. It
Yep.
was JD Webb and Brian Kennedy.
Brian Kennedy, great
Yeah.
call. Exactly that. I mean, you were riding a double up.
Yep, I was on Double Up until I signed with Hyperlight my rookie year on tour.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, just like the crazy thing about when I look back at your career is really truly how I feel like you were one of the first kids that came out and really revolutionized, not necessarily revolution. Your vision of wakeboarding was apparent from the time you started to now, and like the way you rode like changed the game as technicality, style, riding rails, encompassing everything that wakeboarding was, from the beginning of Pointless to building that crazy, insane, that humongous step up rail, to all the double, like first person to really take double ups and double flips and just like different style spins with grabs and wrap spins. There wasn't really a facet of wakeboarding that you didn't touch through your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking back, I think some of it had to do with my background. Like, I didn't really have a water ski background. My parents were from Southern California, and I grew up more looking at surfing and snowboarding and skateboarding. And, when I first got into the sport, it was like Murray and Darren and Parks were really dominating at that time. They really all had more of a water ski background. And you know, I I love to compete, but more so like I think like to compete with myself, and that was my favorite thing about wakeboarding was being able to push through. And you guys were doing S bends and I was doing 720s, so it was really kind of a changing of the guard at that time.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I looked up to those guys, but like I remember my first pro win was I was on the podium with Darren and Murray,
Right.
and like we were doing a completely different set of tricks. And
Was that in Oklahoma?
yeah,
I remember.
City. That was 2000, so that was my rookie year on tour.
Yep.
I had just Paul had just signed me to Hyperlight, and yeah, I mean I was on the podium with of my Bulls, but yeah, other than nine off the double up, and Darren was doing S bends and Volcans, and it was just kind of a changing of the guard. I mean, you were on the same boat, but yeah,
Right.
that's just kind of how the sport evolved, and
We were all pushing the same direction as opposed to where those guys were kind of still just running what was going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were doing a lot more handle pass tricks and mobs and spins, and they were doing more Rayleigh based stuff. And like, to be honest, like I wasn't good at Rayleigh based tricks, so that like
Me neither.
I wasn't trying to be that guy. I was just
Right.
kind of, and I think having a background that came more from surfing, skateboarding, snowboarding. I mean, I started surfing when I was 3, 4 years old with my dad, and skateboarding at the same time. So those were the sports that influenced me. And yeah, I watched the early wakeboard films, but I was more drawn to like the Byerleys and the Gators and the Rainbow
100%.
Harris and those guys that were, maybe a little bit more on the style side of things. But yeah, definitely, interesting times in the sport and cool to see how it's evolved to now. Like there's now a whole new generation doing
Right.
a whole new set of stuff. But yeah, that's part of what makes wakeboarding cool is it's an individual sport that you can really be creative.
For sure, for sure. One thing I really wanted to talk to you about is some of my favorite memories of like filming Incomplete and that whole era of the 99 through 2002 era was, man, like I really loved the time we spent on Lake Willis building rails, doing boat lines. Like some of like the most like the best boat lines I ever threw down in that time was behind your boat on Lake Willis, hitting double ups. And I mean, the amount of new tricks that went down on that lake, it's pretty mind blowing. Like obviously that's where you lived, that's where you grew up, but like what was that like for that to be your home lake? And it was just like, I mean, that became like kind of an epicenter of pointless and wakeboarding's progression for, I mean, almost like a 5 year span.
Yeah, I mean, Lake Willis will always have a special place in my heart for sure. And super cool to go back and watch Incomplete because most of that movie was shot either at Lake Willis, my parents' house, or, at the Boniface house in Lake Alfred. So, yeah, I mean, there's a big chunk of that movie that was there. And for me, it was awesome because I was one of the younger guys. I think, yeah, the youngest guy in the Pointless crew.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have a driver's license at that time.
Yeah.
So, like, literally, I would come home from school. My older sister, would drive me home from school. And you guys would already be at the house, like, building rails and riding and filming. So for me, it was awesome because these are all these guys that were, 2, 3, 4 years older than me, and the guys that I looked up to, and I could come home and jump right into the mix. So for me, I honestly attribute my success to, a big part of it to those golden years of Lake Willis and
They're the
filming
best.
and just having the freedom. And, I mean, as a 15-year-old kid to come home and have, you know, Eric Ruck and Parks Bonifay and Brian Grubb and Chad Sharp and all these guys like hanging out at your house was all time.
Yeah, those were, I mean, and it was your parents were so cool. They took us in, let us, your Mikasa Sukasa was the vibe at your house, and it was just nothing but amazing memories
Yeah,
from
and that
that
lot was
time.
like perfect. It was a big peninsula that stuck out into the lake, so we literally, you know, ideal, I think, to build rails kind of all
Right.
along the property. So we did. It was kind of a rail park, and looking back, it's like I'm surprised my parents let us do that.
It
But
was a full rail park. And
yeah,
honestly, like, that one rainbow into the flat rail and like we were like filming ride-alongs, like I feel like that was like the beginning of actually filming like a rail line. Like no one was filming a line of rails, like especially ride-along stuff like that. Like I mean that was going down in yeah, early 2000s, late night. I mean like
yeah, and my dog would chase us around the whole time we were riding.
yep.
But yeah, that those are some of my best memories at Lake Willis for sure.
Yeah, that was an epic time in wakeboarding.
Yeah, and it was kind of centrally located too, which was cool. You know,
Because at that time I lived down in Lake Alfred by
yeah.
Parks and Shane with Dean Lavelle, and then Parks and Shane like lived right across the street. So for us to drive up, it was like 20 minutes, and then Grubby and everyone else that was where did Chad live at that time? Can't he was kind of all
Yeah,
over
I
the
think
place.
Chad actually lived on Hiawassee or somewhere.
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I no, he lived with Nick and Jules then.
No, yeah, you're right. So either way, it was a good central spot to locate, and that was cool because that was also like when the first real wake boats were kind of becoming a prominent thing. So I had just signed with Nautique and had a brand new Nautique there at the house, and we had a ton of progression in
Dude,
that time.
I learned more tricks behind that boat. I would like great memories for me were, getting ready for X Games. Was it 2001 when you won and we were on the podium together and I
Yeah.
did that Olay, but I remember, do you remember like just like a week before X Games, I landed the first time I tried it was behind your boat and I stopped like just like
Yeah.
out of the gate stomped it and I was just like that went straight to you and like
Ironically, I'm still trying to do that trick.
but also I remember like I mean blind peaks. I mean so many tricks went down
Yeah, that was definitely
in
a
that
good
spot.
time. And just all the cool lines, big tricks and spins and
And ending everything with a double up. That's
yeah.
what Chad and I were talking about a little bit ago is like I feel like it's kind of a forgotten thing. Like every time we turned around, if we were running a line, every turnaround ended in a double up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna turn around, you might as well hit
Hit
a
it.
double up.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that was what was like in that era of, from Pointless to so at the end of Pointless, was the Pointless original Hyperlight era that turned into the original Ronix era. What was that? I mean, you are like a founder, owner. What was that like? And tell me a little bit about how the whole beginning of Ronix happened and just like a little bit of like a story because I mean, you were a major part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, long story short, it was 2006 and, I got a phone call one day from Paul. I had signed on with Hyperlight in 2000. So I had spent 6 years as a Hyperlight rider and I was kind of, growing it was a superstar roster of riders on
Right.
Hyperlight. I was kind of, inching my way towards the top of that roster. And, Paul one day called me and said, "Hey, we're gonna sell Hyperlight and we're gonna leave Hyperlight and we're gonna have a non-compete. And our plan is when that's over to start a new company and we would like you to come on board." And that was a big decision at the time. It was like, you know, I was kind of getting to be in the top of the sport in 2006. I won the Pro Tour in 2006. And so rewind a year, before that's when they were originally leaving. It was, I didn't know what to think. Obviously I love Paul and Herb, but I'm also like in the pinnacle of my career at that point. So yeah, I definitely, had some sleepless nights over it, but in the long run, I kind of, I knew I had faith that Paul and Herb were going to start something amazing. And when they offered me to come on board, it was kind of a no-brainer. The more I thought about it, I wanted to be a part of it. And I love the vision for like what Ronix was going to be, and that was to create the best high-end product out there and to not hold back on anything and to create the best boots, the lightest, most high performance boards. And that was kind of the mission statement going into it. And, that was what I was all about. We were gonna bring some of the best minds and talent from Hyperlight and start this new brand. And yeah, I mean, me, Chad, and Paul sat at a restaurant in Cocoa Beach and brainstormed names. We basically had already decided to start the company, but we didn't even have a name for it. So we literally writing down like on a napkin in a restaurant different ideas for names, and we landed on Ronix. We didn't want a name that like had a predetermined meaning.
Right.
So we wanted it to just be this like vague thing so we could decide what Ronix meant. And I think it had all the ingredients, and it was perfect for what we were doing. And yeah, I mean, all that stuff is like, now, like I'll bleed Ronix forever. I mean, it's like a part of who I am. And we had a vision. And yeah, 2006 I won the pro tour on a hyperlight board. Had the finals been a day earlier, I could have ridden my Ronix prototype board that I had,
Right. But
and
you didn't just also come on board as a rider, you came on board as an owner.
yeah, so that was part of the deal. Obviously, as a startup company, Hyperlight was offering me a significant amount of money to stay on Hyperlight. They kind of knew what they were, facing, and I had a insane offer from Hyperlight. But part of the deal with Ronix was that, yeah, it might not be like what Hyperlight was offering up front, but there's going to be ownership in the company.
Right.
And to me, that was more valuable, and it still is. I tell Paul and people that I'm close with, and now you guys, that that was probably the best decision I made in my career, because one, I'm sitting here today. I still get to be a part of the creative. I still have the one collection that is,
Iconic.
yeah, it's a massive,
It's basically a brand in its own.
yeah. So that to me was all worth it. And yeah, when I don't even compete anymore, but I'm still part of the company and the one brand. And yeah, so I think, that was probably the best decision I made in my whole wakeboard career. And, proud to be behind the one collection and the Ronix brand. And, I still love helping with R&D and, being part of the creative side, not just on the one collection, but on anything that we do.
Right.
And
Wake surfing, all kinds of stuff.
yeah, yeah, and now I, have something to show for my 20-year competitive career. Is, I'm a part owner in a really cool brand in the industry. So
And
definitely.
have a board that is a massive legacy that is, if you look back on the history, the legacy of the one board, there's not a year that one of those boards didn't change the game.
And I'm really proud of what Ronix has done as a company. Like, we've always been innovators, and imitation is the greatest form of flattery, they
I actually
say.
said that the other day in somebody else's interview.
But you can see how, a lot of the other brands are, trying to do what we do. And I think, you can try it for yourself, but I think we do it the best.
Love that. Love that, Dan. All right. All right. All right. One thing I want to talk about. Well, there's a lot of things I still want to talk about, but 1080s, 1260s.
Yeah, so that kind of segues into the 1080, because that was shortly after I won the Pro Tour in '06. I went home and started riding my Ronix board. At that point, it was still a prototype. We weren't in production. And at that Pro Tour event, I did a really big cab nine off the double up. And Kevin Michael, shout out to Kevco.
Kev, go.
He was, I think, judging, or he was in the boat. I'm pretty sure he was a judge. After that ride, he was like, dude, you got to do a 1080. Like, that looked too easy. You're dropping out of a cab nine. So I went home that week and started trying them. And then, uh, yeah, I just had the camera rolling whenever I was riding, because I was starting to get pretty close. And I was riding with, I'm sure, the video's out there, but I was riding with Rusty Malinowski, Andrew Atkinson, and uh,
Wasn't Shane filming that
yeah,
first
I think
one?
Shane
I'm
was,
pretty sure he was.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Shane was filming, or actually it might have been Andrew filming, because Shane filmed the 1260
Oh yeah, oh
for sure.
yeah. I knew Shane filmed one of them.
Yeah, Rusty was driving, Andrew Atkinson was filming, and Ben Greenwood was actually riding like on the same line as
And
us.
did he see it go down from while he was riding?
Yeah, so he was Ben Greenwood was riding kind of straight at us, and we kind of did a fully dick move and drove a double up right in the middle of the course that we were sharing the line.
Sometimes you got to just job
But
on.
I'm sure Ben would forgive me at this point. But yeah, so uh, I connected on a double up and made the first hillside 1080, and Ben was watching it. He like stopped riding to watch me hit the double up, and I landed it, and we kind of like rode right at each other. And that's when I tossed the handle, and I don't think you can see it in the video, but Ben rode right up to me and we like high fived before we sunk in the water.
Really?
So it was a cool moment.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
Parks had done a toe side 1080 at that point, but there had only ever been one landed.
And that was in like 1999, maybe?
99 was Parks's 1080.
The
Yeah,
his toe 10,
his toe tip.
which was kind of like he just threw it randomly, like was going for like a 9 and just punted it and just
Yeah,
kept coming around. And
yeah.
luckily Billy D was
I
firing.
think Parks was shooting a sequence of a
He
9
was.
and he made a 10.
Yep.
And then, yeah, so fast forward 8 or 7 years from 99 to 2006, I made the first heel 1080, but what made it iconic was that it was also on the first
And the first.
Ronix board.
Yep.
So we went to Surf Expo in September of that year, and I won the Trick of the Year from Wakeboard Magazine.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first Wake Awards.
That's a good question. I
I'm
don't
almost
honestly.
positive that was the first Wake Awards, and I'm pretty sure you won the first Trick of the Year. I'm
Yeah, I mean,
almost positive.
you might be right. I don't honestly
Pretty sure.
remember that, but
Pretty sure I'm positive on that one.
yeah, so that was cool because that was like the first Ronix board people were seeing
Hmm.
was me doing a 1080 on Ronix.
Yeah.
And I actually started reading Brad Schmeely's book recently, and he mentions that, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, that was the first 1080, and yeah, definitely was cool. It was kind of putting me in the history books, and up until that point, I was not there yet. So that was
But
cool.
sidebar, if anyone is like, why was there such a long time from a toe 10 to a heel 10? The difference in rotation and handle passing from a toe side front side spin to a heel side spin is much more difficult on a heel side.
I mean, it's a totally different trick.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Exactly.
there's a reason I did a heel side one first, is because I was better at spinning that way too. I mean, I had actually come really close to a lot of toe side 1080s, but had never made it. And then that was just what clicked for me. So yeah, I'm not gonna like sit here and say one's harder than the other. I probably would have done a toe side 1080 first if that was easier for me. But yeah, I mean, that was that was it was crazy because so much time had went by from the first 1080 to the second 1080, and then again, I mean, there was a long time that went by until anything else happened too. So
Right.
I would say, both to Parks's credit and to my credit, we were ahead of our time.
Oh, Parks was, I mean, no one was even thinking 1080
Right, yeah.
when that when he dropped that. That was just,
I mean, now 1080s are like, a basic trick for the top pros, but
doing them off the wake.
at that time, yeah, no one, like a 900 was a big deal. So 1080 was like
Oh, dude,
unfathomable.
when Watson landed the first toe nine, the
Yeah,
off axis toe nine, that was a huge deal.
yeah. But yeah, and then I guess 6 years later, I landed the first 1260, which, I had, you know, kind of had that on my mind for a long time. And then the Wake Awards were coming up. I was actually kind of like a year and a half out from having a severe shoulder injury, and kind of wasn't able to compete for like a year and a half, and started riding again, and didn't have the best competitive year. I want to say it was 2012. And yeah, I just kind of put my mind to being the first guy to do a 1260, and I definitely tried a lot more 12s than I tried 1080s before
Well,
making it. But
I remember that Wake Awards, and there was, obviously, your friends and everyone that was in the inner circle of knowing, like, kind of knew what was going on, but like it was pretty hush hush, and there was definitely a rumbling, like, of like, because there wasn't anything massive, or I can't remember what some of the other things were for
the
Trick
other
of the.
tricks, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I do remember that when they played that, you know how they play the highlight reel and they dropped that 1260. I just remember everyone losing their minds.
Yeah, so I mean, it was only really a couple weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before the Wake Awards in September at Surf Expo. So yeah, I didn't really tell anyone other than a few sponsors and the people that were there in the boat that day. I told everyone not to say anything, just to make it a surprise, and not. Also, I didn't want other people to go out
Exactly.
and
Go out and try.
start trying it and like do another one. So yeah, I mean, I remember telling Todd Hicks from Fox, who was one of my big sponsors at the time, and I told him, and it was like, "Hey, don't do one," but I did this trick, and we revealed at the Wake Awards. But yeah, that was. I can honestly say that's another proud moment in my career because I had to dig deep for that one, and I remember several times like maybe I should just stop trying this. I remember like crashing and putting my head through the handle and
Oof.
arm through the handle, and after trying it for like a solid week, getting really close, it's hard not to give up. But actually, the day I landed it, I tried to like probably 8 to 10 that morning and wasn't really feeling it. I was sore, and I went and played 9 holes of golf and then came back and made it like third try. So yeah, that was awesome. Shane was filming. I remember we had a lot of the Pointless crew in the boat that day. Chad was driving. Chad was like my go-to double up driver for any time you wanted to try something.
Hey, Chad will serve up
Still,
a good double.
Chad still is my go-to double up driver,
He'll
but
serve one up for you.
yeah, it was awesome to have a lot of the Pointless crew there, and those guys just cheering me on, and it was, yeah, made it happen, and still haven't done one since.
One and done, baby.
Yeah, only need to do one.
But you did it first.
Yeah, that's right.
You did it
Well,
first.
actually, I don't think. I think maybe behind the boat, still to this day, you know, what is it? 10 years later? Yeah, more than 10 years later now. I think only Mike Dowdy and Corey Tunison have done it.
Yeah,
So it's not an easy trick to do. So
definitely
I
not.
don't feel bad for only doing one.
Exactly. No, exactly. Take it. That's awesome. Let's see here. Moving along the DHARF timeline. Another thing I want to talk about is one thing that I was very proud and appreciative to be a part of, and something that I think really changed the game in videos, and where you brought this video, bring it Sundance and everything, was and also doing a video that was slightly documentary style, but also showing a bigger picture, was Defy.
Yeah, yeah, that's 1260 and Ronix and Defy are definitely like the three highlights of my career. Yeah, I mean, I really give all the credit to Sean Kilgus because, he put a lot of faith in me to make it happen. And, we're, very inspired by like Travis Rice snowboard movies at that time that
That's
were
it. That's all.
very cinematic movies that were, I feel like Defy is something that like you don't have to be a wakeboarder to appreciate it or
Exactly.
to relate to it. That was really our goal was, and as a way to grow the sport, which I think it did accomplish, Defy was set out to be very cinematic, very, beautiful, and something that you don't have to be a everyday wakeboarder to
Well,
appreciate.
and that's what I was saying. Like, as a wakeboarding movie, from a wakeboarding movie standpoint, it brought it to a different platform for people to view a wakeboarding movie.
Yeah, and really that just meant, that we had to be more patient. We had to set up a lot more shots. We wanted it to be super high end riding, but it had to be in the right conditions. So it wasn't just like, oh, cool, you landed it. Let's put it in the movie. It was like, all right, we need, all of these pieces to come together. And
Right.
then on top of that, I
Right.
have to like perform in that moment. So there was a lot of pressure. I did have a ACL tear and a broken collarbone during the filming of the movie, so there's, we had to overcome a lot of things. The movie did take a year or two more than we planned on.
I mean, in total, how many years it took? Because I remember,
It was like 3 years.
I was gonna say, because we filmed 2 years at Radar for it alone, right?
Right, yeah, we did 2 years at Radar. It like when we shot the original teaser, which was just to show people what we wanted to do and then to get sponsorship dollars behind it. It was like 3 years from teaser to end product. So yeah, we did a lot of stuff at Radar. We did the Blue Lake here in Orlando. We traveled. We went to Mexico. We went to Australia. You were a big part of the movie, and we did a lot of stunts and stuff. And that was kind of my vision was to show where the sport's at, the top riders in the sport, and not just the top riders, but like the top riders that were my crew. And um, yeah, I mean, we definitely put blood, sweat, and tears into the movie. But
100%.
like Ronix, it's something that I'm really proud of in my career, and something that I can always like show now. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and something I can show her and be like, and I've already shown her clips from Defy. Me and Kilgus have been posting a lot of
Right.
Defy clips
Oh
lately.
yeah, Kilgus has been dropped, and we've done a couple of Ronix
Yeah,
collabs with it, and I love that he's because I feel like even though it doesn't seem like that was that long ago, it was what, 2011 did it come out? 10, 2011 somewhere?
yeah, uh, yeah. I think it was 2012,
Maybe 12. Oh
maybe.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right, 12.
Yeah,
Well, even though that
yeah,
and
10 years
for
ago.
us that wasn't that long ago, but a lot of kids that are younger wakeboard kids that are only social media savvy don't know about wakeboard history. I feel like wakeboarding history is so less taught nowadays. Like our era, we knew everything about who came before us, whatever. So the fact I'm really hyped that Kilgus is going back and chopping up all these little clips to kind of bring a little awareness to truly how revolutionary Defy was, so people can see what was happening in that era. Because even from what I was saying, Defy on a platform point, I mean, Defy was the first wakeboarding movie you could download on iTunes.
Yeah,
I mean, like that's a game changer in itself.
Blu-ray, iTunes,
Exactly.
and to put it into perspective, it was before they had flying drones. So a lot of those shots, like I've seen some
A hundred
comments and
percent.
stuff, and it's kind of funny. They're like, "Hey, wouldn't it be easier to get a drone?" Well, it's like to get a shot at that quality at that time was a red camera or a phantom camera, which were super high end cameras at that
Exactly.
time. Like
Exactly.
you're talking like $100,000 camera or more, and we were flying them around in helicopters because that's what you had to do to
Because
get.
and drones didn't really exist to the caliber they are now to be able to do what you can do now with a drone.
Right,
It just
yeah.
wasn't a thing.
Drones
It
now
wasn't a thing.
have changed the game for filming, and it's obviously way more convenient, way cheaper. The quality of shots is, way better than even it was when we were filming Defy. But like the process you had to go to get those shots was
And that's where I give Kilgus a lot of credit, specifically Defy, was bringing in a phantom guy. I mean, like really like putting the effort to the cinematic value and making wakeboarding beautiful. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I mean, we
truly,
we we did some cool stuff. Like
yeah.
we brought in Jordy Klein, and he shot Phantom of Reed
I
Hansen
mean, he's
wake
a
skating.
legend in
Yeah,
cinematography.
Jordy's a legend. We shot Reed wake skating at 1,000 frames a second, which turns out that's way too many frames per second.
A
But
lot of frames per second.
yeah, but I think we
Was
ended up
that
running
a
at
Phantom?
that was Phantom.
Yeah,
I
that's what I
think it
thought.
ended up running at like 500 frames a second for where it's almost like stop motion, but you see the board spinning and
But
the water flying off. But that's what we set out to do and make a cinematic wakeboard movie that anyone can appreciate, and I think it still holds its own when it comes to, action sports movies. It actually did win some awards at X Dance, which is like
Oh yeah, X Dance. I said Sundance earlier.
Sundance version
I meant X Dance.
of
Yeah.
extreme sports cinematography. But yeah, I mean, I definitely owe all the credit to Sean Kilgus and guys like you who put a lot into the movie. Eric won the best trick of the year for a back mob into a pool, which was, super ballsy move. And
Hey, I owe it to you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that. I mean,
yeah, so
that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for your vision of that whole
but yeah, I
that
mean,
whole
we
stunt.
we all had a good time pushing the sport, and got to travel and have fun making a film that is still, a good portrayal of what I think wakeboarding is all about.
Honestly, personally, for me, like winning trick of the year from that whole pool setup was such an honor, but like the part that was truly in my like memory of that whole setup was the energy around that pool.
Yeah,
It was insane. Like I've out of all the stuff we've done over the years and done together and that has really been cool to be a part of, that still stands out because I'll never forget like you, Park. I mean everyone like Dina. I mean everyone that was involved, like it was such an energy of pushing each other and like we like all had to figure it out first. And
and
then
yeah, and Ronzi and
Ronzi and Jay stands for
Jason
building that thing.
Jason Stanley and Ronzi, who are a big part of Square One and the products we put out there. They they built that pool from the ground up, and nothing had really ever been done like that. So yeah, I mean, it was a team effort all over.
Like I don't even think people realize watching that. Like we had like how long was that rope? Like 150 feet long?
I don't remember, but yeah,
But like we had to make a super long rope because it was being pulled from a boat. So you had to have enough rope length to be able to drift and not be instantly pulled out of the pool.
yeah, probably was about 100 feet. It was definitely not your average wakeboard rope.
And we were hauling ass into that thing because you need to have enough speed to carry the momentum to get up and stay up over there. That was
There are some consequences. I mean,
yeah.
there's definitely anytime you're hitting rails or launching yourself out of the lake on a wakeboard, there's high consequences. So,
Yeah.
but it was awesome. That section is still one of the best sections of the movie.
No, that's one of my personal favorite memories of wakeboarding for me and with our entire crew that like really sticks out
Yeah.
for a career highlight for me too.
I'm with you though. The vibes around that pool and just the energy and the way we were
And
pushing each
Herb
other.
was standing, Herb was
Yeah.
there watching the whole thing, being super, he was pumped coming up, asking us all kinds of I mean, like,
And we had a lot of the Square One dealers, Ronix and Radar dealers were there for dealer days, and they were all standing around the
yeah,
pool cheering us on too. So it was cool because a lot of times we were shooting and it was just like the film crew and the riders, but we kind of had an audience there, which added to the drama.
yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool. Okay, so moving on from that, nowadays you're doing stuff with Nautique and whatever. What's your
Current status.
well not current status, but what's your outlook on where how you want to still like you have a legacy line of wakeboards that changed the world. Where do you want to take that from here?
Um, I mean, I think my goal now for wakeboarding is just to have fun with it. I mean, I'm a dad now. I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and I'm selling Nautiques here at Regal and Nautique of Orlando. I really do enjoy being on the other side of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Being in boat sales, it's really fun to get to, guide people. And when someone's buying a boat, it's usually a good day, so you get people on their best day. I do a lot of, I'll instruct my customers, their kids, and make sure that they are going to have a great time on the water, and kind of passing the handle on through being on the boat sales side of things. um, But realistically, I still love to ride and wakeboard, and now that I don't have to do it for competitive reasons, I have more fun than I've had on the water in a long time.
Right.
I like to wake surf a lot. I still think there's a ton of progression through foiling, through wake surfing, through wakeboarding, and just really being on the water. I think there's something valuable to that. Whether you want to wakeboard at a high level or you just want to go out and ride a foil board or go for a wake surf. I think it brings families and people together, and I think that it's just a cool industry to be a part of, and no intention of leaving the industry. I'm blessed to be able to still be a part of the Ronix team and have that side and also work on the boat sales side. So yeah, I mean honestly right now I'm having a blast being on the water, riding Ronix and selling boats, and having kind of a good mix of being at a desk and also being on the water. And like I said, yeah, I mean, I enjoy my time more on the water now than I probably ever have. And having a two-year old daughter, I get to share that with her, and she wake surf with me recently, and I'm really looking forward to this summer spending more time with her on the water. And yeah, I mean, I'm
That's
just,
very cool.
I'm feel like I'm in a good place. I'm proud of my career as a wakeboarder, but I don't feel like I have anything to prove. And I do enjoy, passing the handle and sharing what water sports and just being on the water can do for other families and other individuals. So yeah, I mean, don't plan on disappearing anytime soon, but yeah, I'll still jump in and strap in for a contest here and there. I did Parks's double or nothing contests the last couple of years, and I still like hucking myself and doing double flip.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I do enjoy just being on the water and living this lifestyle, and I think it's something worth sharing with everyone.
I do love that we'll be at a product shoot, right? And you're up, everyone's ridden, done their thing, and you do a line, give a little sign at the end, and you'll go out and punt a big old toe side backside off axis 7 and just in your face, and you still keep that alive, and I love that. And I love being able to film you doing that, and it stokes me out that you have carried that energy through your whole career, and you continue to carry that energy. And it's been an absolute pleasure to go through this journey with you, my friend.
Likewise.
And not getting too deep and sentimental, because we're going to end this with D Harf's favorite pointless party story.
Wow. Favorite pointless party story would. That's a tough one. I'm gonna honestly have to say the little house at Parks's in Lake Alfred, probably doing 50 races in the front yard. Probably not fully sober.
Mm-mm. Yeah, definitely not.
Those were good times.
Those are some good times. A lot of demolition. I was horrible at racing 50s.
I mean,
Horrible.
if you call it a 50 race, it was more of just seeing who could
Surviving.
stay on the bike.
Who could stay on the bike the longest?
Yeah, let's just say I'm glad we didn't grow up with social media here.
Oh, I'm so glad.
But
We're,
you find
we are blessed. Hey, Dan,
everybody.
love you too. Cheers. Danny Harf, everybody.
Thanks for watching.